Okay, this is part 6. Why President Ronald Reagan is a snake oil salesman and the U.S. Congress committed fraud when they passed the 1981 tax cuts and the Tax Reform Act of 1986. And I left off here in my previous video some remarks that Reagan was making here. I don't know if you got this in that part of the video, but I'll pick up right here. In the 1986 Tax Reform Act, the repeal of the political contribution tax rate was anti-democratic. He concluded by saying, "I feel like we have played the World Series of tax reform and the American people won." Well, that is also false. It was a small tax cut on workers in the middle class and a progressively bigger percentage tax cut as incomes increased. And it never came close to balancing the budget. Now let's take a look at the Tax Reform Act of 1986. A headline in the Washington Post described the passage of the Tax Reform Act as the dream of Americans' fair share tax reform plan became a reality. Okay. It reduced the 15 graduating tax rates in 1986 to 5 in 1987 and to 2 in 1988. It had some good parts. It curbed, reduced or eliminated some tax shelters, deductions, and tax credits. It also had some bad parts. Changes to the alternative minimum tax dropped revenues from $6.7 billion in 1986 to $0.7 billion in 1989. Less paid, and they paid less. Reagan, after telling voters our plan could reduce the 14 tax rates to 3 on national TV, the 35% tax rate on income over $70,000 was dropped. The bill claims the reduction of the marginal tax rates from 15 to 2 made the tax code simpler. That is false. It was used as an excuse to flatten the progressive income tax. Multiple tax rates and brackets don't make the tax code complex. It is the added provisions and changes in the tax code written in legalese. Sections 101 to 1,899 are by no means simple. It added complexity to the tax code. Another defect, Reagan insisted it be revenue neutral. Why go to the trouble? He said at this signing ceremony it almost doubled the standard deduction. That was an exaggeration. HR 4242 indexed the 0 to 3,400 tax-free tax bracket here. Beginning in 1985, it would have reached about 4,000 by 1988. The tax-free bracket was eliminated and replaced with the standard deduction of 5,000, or an increase of 1,000 or 25%. Yes, you did increase the standard and personal deductions. That was the cheese put in the mousetrap to ensure voter support for the bill. Another bad part, it gave a bigger percentage tax cut as income increases. Based on the 1988 two income tax rates, 15 and 28, these are the tax savings for the 3 levels of income based on taxable income after all deductions married filing jointly. Now, okay, if your income is 20,000, Reagan says this average family income, you got a $225 tax savings here from your 1981 tax, a reduction for what you would paid in 1981. That's 6.9%. If your income right here is 350,000, you got a tax savings of $117,610 from your 1981 tax. That's a saving here of 55.6%. Now, if your income here was 1 million, wow, look at, you get $390,610 tax savings. That's 58.6%. See, as your income goes up, the bigger your tax cut. Okay, now look at, what did they say in the Washington Post? The headline, one of the headlines? This was a fair share tax plan. See how the mass media, owned by the wealthy or corporations, misleads voters? This was not a fair share tax plan. Another reason the TRA 86 was a bad tax reform act. It did not provide Uncle Sam with sufficient revenues to pay his bills. The 1988 deficit was $155.2 billion. That grew to $269.3 billion by 1991. Reagan called it a Herculean effort. That was false. Hercules would have gotten rid of unfair loopholes and tax deductions, taxed based on economic benefit and ability to pay, and matched revenues with government expenses. Reagan thought it was more important to give himself a tax cut than balance the budget. Instead of raising taxes to pay for government expenses, he raised the debt ceiling 17 times. He believed trickle-down economics was the best way to raise tax revenues. And I want to point out here, the budget deficits were phony. Not all expenses were included. The national debt grew much higher each year, from $252 billion in 1988 to $432 billion in 1991. Voters were duped by Reagan into supporting tax reform that changed the graduating income tax into a two-tiered flat tax, the goal of the Republican Party. TRA, this Tax Reform Act in 1986, had a salmon ladder of other tax increases, so the top rate of 50% could be reduced to 28, a tax reduction of 44% on the top bracket. This follows a 28.6 reduction in 1981, for a total tax reduction of 60% on the top 1% of taxpayers. His May 25, 1985 TV message to voters explaining his pro-family tax cuts was a Trojan horse to lower and flatten income taxes on the rich. He showed what the percentage tax cuts would be to 50,000 and then stopped. That would have shown that people with the income over 50,000 would have gotten a progressively higher percentage tax cut as income increased. Between 1980 and 1986, now that's during the Reagan presidency, the number of people reporting income of more than $500,000, rocketed from 16,881 to 183,240, an increase of 985%. Average family income stayed more or less the same. The income of the bottom fifth declined 6%. Uncle Sam was the big loser. The national debt nearly tripled. Now, I want to show you this picture here of Reagan signing the Tax Reform Act in 1986 on the South Lawn here. That is of the White House. And that took place on October 22, 1986. Now Reagan's sitting at this table here, and he's signing this Tax Reform Act. What it does here is reduce the 14 rates to two, a two-tiered flat tax. Now the bottom tax rate was too high, 15%, and the top rate, 28%, was too low. What he's doing here, he has murdered the graduated income tax, the fairest form of taxation, based on benefit and ability to pay. And these men here in the background are his accomplices, or you could say backers. Now this right here is Jack Kemp, former professional football player. He was a proponent of the flat tax. And you know what? He voted for this bill. It reduces his tax top rate from 40 all the way down to 28. And to bring that about, you know what had to happen? This bill contains the elimination of student loan as a deduction. To get that tax cut, this rich man here, get a tax cut of from 50 all the way down to, we have to eliminate tax deductions on student loans. It's just one of the new tax increases. Okay, this next man right here is Don Regan. He's the former CEO of Merrill Lynch, a multi-millionaire. He supported Reaganomics. We have here Bob Dole. He was a Senate Majority Leader. He voted for this bill. He's also a millionaire. Now this is Dan Rostenkowski, chairman of the Ways and Means Committee in the House. He also voted for this bill. You know, later he pleaded guilty to corruption and was given a 17-year prison sentence. We have here standing Bob Packwood, chairman of the Finance Committee in the Senate. He also voted for this bill. You know that he resigned his seat in the Senate over charges of sexual misconduct. And he went to work on K Street, became a high-paid lobbyist. Reagan signing this bill here is government buy-in for the top 1% or the top 5%. It's not. This is a violation of the principle of democracy. The majority of people would not support this bill if they knew what it contained and the consequences. Now I'm going to go next to this chart here. Actually, there's two charts here combined. I'll put them side by side to show the correlation. Again, this is Reagan, picture of Reagan. And, you know, when he became president in 1981, the U.S. national debt here was 754, no,